Good morning, friends, and happy New Year. Okay, hope you had a Merry Christmas. Yeah, and today I'm here for data management. Data management. Here for data management. I know most of these we've looked at in our earlier sessions, but just remind us about how best to manage our data. Yeah, we all know that data consists of the facts and figures that are collected and analyzed. Okay, so we get this data from qualitative or quantitative variables by looking at individual or groups, or from individuals or group of elements. Okay, so we have several types of data. Yeah, it can be primary or secondary. Data can be categorized as primary or secondary. Yeah, it can be nominal or ordinal, published or unpublished, quantitative or qualitative. Yeah, not and quantitative. Yeah, qualitative or quantitative. Okay, so we're going to see the unqualitative. Here we're talking about quantitative or qualitative. All right. Yeah, so just remind us about descriptive statistics. Yeah, so here we're talking about the tabular, graphical, and numerical methods we use to summarize our data, or we use to describe the characteristics of our elements. Okay. Whereas for statistical inference, we use the data we've obtained from a sample to make estimates or to draw conclusions about the population characteristics. Yeah, just remind us about this. Yeah, inferential statistics or statistical inference, whereby we use the information of the data we've obtained from a sample to make an estimate or test a hypothesis about the characteristics of a population. So there are several methods we use to collect data. Okay, recall we get this information from elements. Okay, we get this information from elements, and there are several methods we can use to collect this data. Yeah, because we get this information from persons, objects. Yeah, so how do we collect the data? Yeah, all right. So let's start with the data sources. Yeah, before even we go into those other methods of collecting data, we have two major sources of data, and that's the secondary data and then the primary data. When we talk about secondary data, you're talking about the usage of data which has already been collected. You're not collecting that data for the very first time, rather using data which has already been collected. Whereas primary data is that first-hand information. Yeah, you're the first person to collect that information. You get a questionnaire, go to the field, and get the information. First-hand information from the elements. It could be persons. Yeah. Whereas for secondary data, it's like if you go to your boss, they've already collected some data. You go to Ministry of Finance, you use the information they've already collected, then that will be secondary data. Yes, so there are several sets of secondary data. We have survey records, experimental studies records, in this case internal records, employee records, internet, websites, publications, newspapers, books. All those make up the secondary data, or can help us to get the secondary data. Then when it comes to primary data, there are several ways we can collect the primary data. We can use the interviews, the questionnaires, observations, or the surveys. Okay, we'll look at some of these in more details. Alright, these are the methods we use to gain or to gather primary data. Recall we're talking about that data you're collecting for the very first time. Okay, so I think I will talk more about this. Actually, I will send you more information about this, the questionnaires, the interviews, the observations, and so on. But let me briefly hint about them, because I guess I may not have describe them in more details. Okay, when you talk about interviews, all right, interviews used mainly to collect qualitative data. Altogether, that data which is not numerical. Okay, recall we have the quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative, those are the numerical. That's the numerical data which that uses numerical data. Whereas for qualitative, it's not numerical. We're talking about people's expressions. We are looking out, finding out how people feel about some things. All right, so we use mainly verbal elements and so on and so forth. So to get that information, we mainly use the interviews. Interviews can be face-to-face interactions, yeah, between the person getting the information, that's the interviewer, and then the person from whom the information is being gotten, the interview. So in most cases, when people are interacting, yeah, I'm asking you questions following my interview grade, you're giving me answers. So I may choose to be recording that information, yeah, maybe using a cassette recorder, or I may choose to be writing down the information you're giving me. Okay, those are interviews. I have my questions written down at times. So I ask you, you explain to me. I ask you another question, you explain to me as I'm recording or as I'm noting down what you're telling me. Those are the interviews. Interviews have some advantages and disadvantages, for which I'll ask you to go and find out more, but I'll just give a hint on some of the advantages. Like you said, interviews in most cases involve interaction. Yeah, it could be a face-to-face, it could be a phone interaction, but there's an interaction between two elements whereby one person is asking and the other person is responding. Yeah, that alone has some advantages. Okay, in most cases you get actual information. People will not lie. Yeah, if I give you people to just tick, chances are that you lie to me. But in most cases, when I'm asking you, the rapport I create, the atmosphere I create makes it hard for you to lie to me. Yeah, so meaning with the interviews at times you can even get sensitive, you can be able to get the sensitive information. Based on how I'm interacting with you, you may end up even telling me things you didn't have thought of telling me. Okay, so interviews are very, very important when we're looking out for that kind of information which involves feelings. Someone had a problem, maybe we are having a study on, let's say, prostitution. Okay, it would be better if you use interviews to get information from those people, to know how they feel. Okay, how they feel, why they do some things, and so on and so forth. Alright, the other advantage of interviews is the flexibility. In most cases, you can be able to change according to the situation, how you're seeing the person you're interviewing. Okay, that can make you change maybe the framing or how you're framing out the questions, but recall for whatever you're doing, they should be in line with your research questions or with what you want to find out. Interviews have some disadvantages. One of the disadvantages being expensive. Interviews are expensive. And they're expensive. One, it's expensive to get people who can interview. Not everyone can interview. It's hard. Okay, it requires some skills. Not everyone can interview. It takes some skills. Yes, in most cases, those people are expensive. It's time consuming. Yeah, the time you take to do one interview, a person can get 10 questionnaires in that same time. Yeah, recall it involves interactions. And you know what happens with interactions? Some people are too talkative altogether. Some people are too talkative. You ask a question, it tells you a story, it tells you several things. Okay, you ask a person, why did you choose? Okay, why did you choose to come to? Maybe you're interacting with the students and you decided to do an interview. Yeah, maybe you want to see how they feel about these online exams, and you choose to do it qualitatively. And then you ask a question. Okay, how do you find studying online? And then a person starts, I'm the firstborn in my family. Whatever my parents do, they're looking upon me. Okay, we used all the money which the family would have used to survive. Alright, In my family, no one has ever used a computer, so you know how it feels to be the first person to use a computer. Alright? I'm asking how they found online lectures, but the person is giving me background information, how it is they're the firstborns, how no one has ever used a computer in the family. They can go on and tell even other cultural things and so on and so forth. Alright? So by the time you put them back on track, yeah, so they'll be on track, off track, on track, off track. So interviews take time. Actually, if you ever tried interviewing, you may find that you can do 3 or 2 interviews a day. Altogether, 4. The time consuming. Okay, and even when you get the information, the data, qualitative data, all the data you get from interviews is relatively hard to analyze when compared to the quantitative data. Most people are not familiar with the tools used to analyze qualitative data. Yeah, there are several tools which have been put in place, but few people know. Yeah, if I talk about SPSS, I talk about Stata. Most of you know, or most people have at least one or the other found or used those tools. But when I ask about the qualitative tools, or if I talk about the thematic analysis, quantitative analysis, few people are knowledgeable about how to analyze qualitative data, all that data we get when we use interviews. Alright, so you can go and read more about interviews, about how to frame, how you present yourself when you're carrying out an interview. That's another important thing. Yeah, how do you present yourself when you're interviewing a person? Alright, how do you sitting posture? You're a lady, how do you put on? Do you put a see-through top with a see-through bra when you're interviewing a person? Will that person give you accurate information? Altogether, imagine interviewing a person, you're putting a see-through top with a see-through bra. Will that person give you rightful information? Alright, so you need to go and read about how you present yourself, how you do what, and so on and so forth. Advantages and disadvantages of interviews are just hinted on them. Then we have the questionnaire. This is the common method used to analyze or to collect quantitative data. Yeah, remember when we talk about quantitative, we talk about the numerical data. Numerical data. Let me just simplify it by quantitative and numerical. We're going to deal with numbers. We're going to quantify the characteristics of our elements. We're going to use numbers. So a questionnaire is a list of questions, which can give us the information we want to answer our research questions, if I may bring it that way. So a questionnaire is made up of questions, but those questions have a purpose, and the purpose of those questions is to to answer or to give answers to our research questions. There's something you need, so you come up with questions, okay, and list of those questions or a collection of those questions is what we call a questionnaire. Actually, it comes from question. Yeah, I know some of you call your friends questionnaires because they ask a lot of questions. Yeah, in class they always ask questions, so you tend to call them questionnaires. Alright, so that's a questionnaire, list of questions. Yeah. Okay, so you need to understand, how do you come up with a questionnaire? Alright, together, how big should a questionnaire be? What are the qualities of a good questionnaire? Alright, what are the advantages of using questionnaire method? And what are the disadvantages of using the questionnaire method? I'm trying to see if I have a questionnaire here with me, which I would have used to show you. Okay. I think I may not be having one, but I'll share with you a questionnaire. A list of questions you ask. What's your name? I don't know. We don't ask names. We don't need to know people's names when you're collecting data. Yeah, please don't ask for their names. Okay. How old are you? Sure. That's a question. When did you join UCU? All together. How old are you? All together, you need information, and that's the background information. That information helps us to understand more about our elements, about the people from whom we get the information. Okay, so when you're designing a questionnaire, the first section is made up of the background information about the elements. Ask them about their age, about their gender, about their maybe experience, based on what you want to find out, where they stay, etc. But it all depends on what you want to find out. And then you start breaking the other sections of the questionnaire based on objectives. If my first objective is to examine let's say the effect of bookkeeping, or to find out the relationship between bookkeeping and performance. Yeah, and maybe the first one is to, yeah, that's my first objective. All right, so that means the first section should be having questions in line with that objective altogether. And there are various ways we design questions. Yeah, the commonest one being the use of the Likert scales. Yeah, Likert scales. You can read more about the Likert scales. They're used a lot where you're designing questionnaires, where you put a level of agreement: strongly agree, not sure, disagree, strongly disagree. Yeah, that's a Likert scale. You ask a person a statement. You ask, let's say, online studies have made people to be more familiar with the gadgets. And then I ask, agree, or I start with strongly agree, not sure, disagree, strongly disagree. A person takes and so on. So you can go and read more about that. So the key thing we need to understand here is how we design questionnaires. Do you just formulate any form of a question? Are there some questions we need to avoid? Okay, are there some questions we need to concentrate on? How big should a question be? Right, together. So some of the key components, or some of the things we need to put into consideration when designing a questionnaire, is the questions. We should avoid having so many questions. You can put yourself in a position whereby you're answering a questionnaire, and then a person presents to you 1,000 questions. Will you be able to answer those questions? One, you'll be biased by me looking at a questionnaire which is like a book. Yeah, so you should have to make your questionnaire a bit small, but being small doesn't mean you leave out the information you want. You can find a way of making it small, but when you're getting all the information you want. Yeah, and still avoid having long questions. Okay, you can simplify your questions. Alright, the other thing we need to avoid is confusing questions. Yeah, in this case we can talk about questions like those which are double-built. Right, a question which has two questions in one altogether. Yeah, there are those questions whereby you ask a question, but in that question there are two questions. So if a person gives an answer, you can't tell, yeah, what the person is trying to answer. The other thing is we should avoid sensitive questions. There are some questions which are too sensitive, meaning if you use them in a questionnaire, people may not be able to give answers. Recall with the questionnaire, the way you get answers, you've come up with a list of questions, maybe on papers. Yeah, you have a paper like your 5-pager having questions. Okay, you can send out those questions to people via mail, via social media or anything, and the person ticks altogether. Yeah, a person reads the question and they give answer. They read the question and they give answer. That's one way. The other way is some people use the way whereby a person comes with a questionnaire, they ask you a question, but when they're taking. Yeah. Okay. All right. The other thing I need to talk about is the kind of questions we have in a questionnaire. We can have open-ended or closed-ended questions. I've talked about briefly about what to avoid while questioning or while coming up with the questions. We said we should avoid having so many questions, sensitive questions, double-built questions, biased questions. There are questions which are kind of biased, yeah, whereby they predict, yeah, or within a question a person can get an answer, or a person can be biased to a certain answer. Like if I ask, UCU is a good university, yeah, then I ask, don't you think that UCU is a good university? I will avoid a bias to you, so you should avoid even such questions. Alright, so we've said with the questionnaire we can have open-ended or closed-ended questions. Open-ended are questions whereby I just ask and I leave it to you. I ask, what are the challenges students face? Or as a student, what challenges have you faced while using e-learning? I leave it open. You give me questions. We don't get time for our soaps. Internet is on and off. Okay, housework. You'll be attending a lecture and mom calls you to come and mop. uh, our gadgets. Some gadgets are China. It freezes in the middle of a quiz. Yeah, China gadgets or fake gadgets. You give those challenges. Yeah, I've left it open and you give me answers. But there are some questions which are close-ended. I ask a question and then I give the answers from which you select. I ask you, what challenges have you faced during the e-learning? And I put for you options. Option one, I propose challenges. I put maybe poor network, lack of gadgets, poor timing, etc. Therefore, you just come and select. Those are close-ended questions. So in a questionnaire, you can have those two types of questions. Those which are close-ended, whereby they give the answers. We give the answers like those multiple choice question answers. Or questions whereby the answers are provided, and for you tick what you think is more appropriate. Whereas for the open-ended, I leave the question and you think of the answers altogether. So you can read about the advantages of questionnaires and the disadvantages of using questionnaire method. You can read about the advantages and disadvantages of using questionnaire method. One of the advantage will be they're cheap when compared to interviews. When compared to interviews, questionnaires are cheap way of getting information altogether. They take little time. They don't take a lot of time when compared to interviews altogether, and so on and so forth. Please can read more about the questionnaires and interviews. I've just introduced them. Then we have the observation. At times you collect data by just observing. You look at someone and you collect information. I can come and look at you when I'm collecting information. Actually, I'm trying to see how you're doing some things, okay, how you're behaving, or how some things are happening. You can just observe and collect information, but while you're observing, you're guided by maybe an observation checklist. There are some things you want to find out in your observation, whether they're present or absent. So you have to do the checklist with you. You say, I've seen Chaglan doing this, he has not done that, this has happened. So when people are overlooking at you, some of the people are collecting data, they're getting information. So you can be like, this guy is overlooking at me, that person is getting information. Alright, so please can read more about these methods. And then talk about data presentation. Okay, we are saying secondary data is at times already summarized. At times, like the one you get from UPOST, there's some which is not summarized into tables or graphs, which is in its should I say raw form. The way people give the answers, and it's you to present it. Okay, to present it. But primary data, raw data is the one which need to be processed. Okay, so the raw data generated or meaningful information. Let me make something clear here. We are saying secondary data is often, not always, altogether. There are times you get secondary data which is not summarized. Which is just the way people give it out, and then you have to summarize it. Just help me close my printer. Help me close, please. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So there are several ways we present our data, or we present our data. Recall there are some answers you're giving using that data. Altogether. For instance, you want to know how many people are doing this, how many are not doing this, what are people saying about this, doing this. So you present the information you've gotten in some of these forms, tables, etc. Graphical methods, you can read about those methods, pie charts. Now let me go on and talk about data analysis. We are students of statistics, or we are statistics students. I don't want to use that term. There's some hard term there I want to avoid. Okay, we need to know how to analyze data. It will be a shame if you graduate and leave UCU. Let me talk slowly. You graduate, leave UCU when you don't know how to analyze data. How to get that? Will be a shame. Yeah, so you need to learn how to analyze data, mainly using the computer programs. These components, I don't talk about them more. Mainly using the computer program. Yeah, you're lucky. I'm seeing lecturers teaching you how to analyze data. I often see Mr. Sebaga teaching people how to analyze data using Stata. I see Madame Carol teaching you how to analyze data using Stata. You people take those lectures seriously. Okay, when you get the data, that's not all. Altogether, that data is useless if it's not analyzed and presented. Altogether. So if you come and ask me questions, how do you find this I take? Hey, I give you answers and you just go and keep them or you present them. You can't present that work in that form. That data in its raw form. You need to analyze it and make sense out of it. Okay, and the programs you can use to analyze data. Okay, some of the for the computer programs, I'll talk about Stata, I'll talk about spaces, mainly those ones. Okay, so Stata, when you get time, that's in case they've not taught you how to use Stata. When you get time, we can go through it. Yeah, when we get data, when you get time, I can take you through how we analyze data. Yeah, how you can run tables, frequency tables, to know how many people said this, how many said that. How to summarize the information, to get the averages, maybe get the average age of your respondents. How together you run correlations to establish the relationship between variables. You make predictions using the regressions. The things you study, you can get them from when you analyze your data using those computer programs. You run a correlation. You study correlations in class. You're studying regressions in class. Actually, our next lecture will be regressions and correlations. Yeah, but those things are developed or can be developed using computer programs. Actually, some people are too good at Excel that they can analyze data using Excel. But for us, we concentrate mainly on Stata and SPSS. Alright, we'll get time for the data. We'll get time for the data analysis. We'll get time for the data analysis. Okay, I don't want to have very long videos. Yeah, so let me stop at this. Yeah, I'm going to record another video on data management. Here I was just talking about data and how we collect the data. I'll have another video on data management and we're going to have it now. Yeah, but for the meantime, bye bye, just for the meantime. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you.